I found out about my first grandchild in the most painful way, not from my son, not from my daughter-in-law, but from my neighbor. She leaned over the fence one afternoon and whispered, "Congratulations, I saw your daughter-in-law walking with the baby stroller. Such a sweet little one." My heart froze. Baby? What baby? I forced a smile, but inside the ground broke beneath me. I had no idea a child had even been born. I had been waiting years for this day, dreaming of holding my first grandchild in my arms. Instead, I stood there in the yard, blindsided by a stranger's words. That night, I lay awake, my hands trembling. How could this be? How could my own flesh and blood be hidden from me? I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. The truth spread through me like ice water. I remembered every time I called my son and he cut the conversation short, every excuse about being busy with work, every strange pause when I asked about his wife's health. Now it all made sense. They weren't busy, they were hiding something. The next morning, I walked to my son's house. My chest pounded like a drum. When I knocked, my daughter-in-law opened the door only a crack. Her eyes were cold, her smile fake. "I just heard..." "Someone said..." "There's a baby," I stammered. She tilted her head, almost amused. "Oh, yes. We didn't think it was the right time to tell you." Not the right time? Months had passed. A whole human being had come into the world carrying my blood, and they decided I wasn't worthy of knowing. "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why wouldn't you tell me?" She shrugged, as if brushing off a fly. "We wanted privacy. We don't need everyone involved." Everyone? I wasn't everyone. I was his mother. I was the woman who had carried my son for 9 months, raised him alone. After his father walked out, worked 2 jobs so he could eat. Now, I was reduced to nothing. My son appeared in the hallway, holding something bundled in a blanket. My heart leapt. I leaned forward, desperate for a glimpse, but he turned away, shielding the baby as if I were a danger. "Son," I whispered, "please, let me see my grandchild." He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just mumbled, "It's not a good time, Mom. We'll call you later." The door shut in my face. I stood there, numb. For years I had been the strong one, swallowing insults, forgiving cold shoulders, never asking for much. But this was a knife through my chest. On the walk home, I kept hearing her words. We don't need everyone involved. Everyone. That's what I had become. A stranger on the outside of my own family. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me. Memories flooded back, of buying my son's school shoes with the last $20 in my purse, of skipping meals so he wouldn't go hungry, of clapping the loudest at his graduation. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every tear. All so he could grow, and now, grown, he had built a wall between us, brick by brick, with his wife holding the mortar. The shame burned in me. What had I done so wrong that I wasn't trusted with my own grandchild? Had I been too strict when he was young, too protective, too poor to deserve respect? I pressed my hands against my chest, trying to steady my heartbeat, but the ache only grew. The next week, I watched from my window as my neighbor waved to my daughter-in-law, who strolled down the street with the baby carriage. The sight gutted me. That was my grandchild, tiny legs kicking under the blanket, a soft cry I could almost hear from across the road. My arms ached with emptiness. When the stroller passed, I whispered to myself, that should have been me. I started to wonder, or if I would ever be allowed to know this child, or if my role in this story was already erased. But deep inside, I knew one thing. Secrets like this don't stay buried forever. And the truth? The truth always finds a way to break through. The door shutting in my face should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. It was only the beginning. That sound, the sharp click of the lock, kept echoing in my ears. I walked home with my chest hollow, but as I sat alone at the kitchen table, the memories started flooding back. memories I had buried deep. I remembered the years I had given up everything just to keep my son's world intact. When his father left, I told myself, don't cry in front of the boy. Be strong. I was young, terrified, but I knew I had to fight for him, so I did. I worked long hours at the diner, then cleaned offices late at night. I would come home with my feet swollen, hands raw, but when I peeked into his room and saw him sleeping peacefully, I whispered, it's worth it. Every single tear is worth it. There were nights I skipped dinner so he could eat seconds. I remember pawning my wedding ring to buy his school shoes. When the clerk asked if I was sure, I said, it's just a ring. My boy needs shoes more. But sacrifices don't buy gratitude. Years later, when he started high school, he wanted to play football. The fee was more than I could manage, but I scraped it together by working double shifts. I even took cleaning jobs at houses across town, humiliated by the way some women looked at me. But I smiled, thinking, he'll never know this shame. He'll just see the uniform, not the price I paid to get it. I held on to those small victories. I thought they meant something. But sitting at that kitchen table after being denied a glimpse of my grandchild, I realized something cruel. Maybe all those sacrifices had been forgotten. The silence between us had been building for years. It started small, missed phone calls, short visits, excuses that sounded rehearsed. Then came the holidays when he said, Mom, we're too busy this year, even though I knew they weren't. I would set the table for one and whisper, maybe next year. The first Christmas after he married, I wrapped gifts and placed them under the tree. I waited with hot chocolate warming on the stove, but no one came. At 9 o'clock, I called him. His voice was flat. Mom, we decided to spend it with her family. Sorry. I hung up and sat there, the lights blinking on the tree, reflecting against my tears. That was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own child's life. Over time, the daughter-in-law's words grew sharper, though always coated with sugar. Once at a family dinner, I offered to help with the dishes. She smiled thinly and said, no need, you've done enough already. Her tone was polite, but her eyes said something else. You're not welcome here. My son chuckled nervously, trying to smooth things over. Mom, don't worry about it. But I noticed everything. Still, I kept giving. Birthdays, I slipped money into cards. When they moved into their first house, I brought groceries saying, it's nothing, just a little to help. She smiled, but never said thank you. Sometimes I felt like nothing more than an ATM with legs. And yet I told myself it was fine. As long as my son is happy, as long as he feels loved, I can take it. But love doesn't grow in silence. Silence suffocates. One afternoon, I called my son, just wanting to hear his voice. He answered, but in the background, I heard her whisper, why is she calling again? He quickly said, Mom, I'm busy, I'll call later, then hung up. My hands shook as I put down the phone. I had become an inconvenience in my own child's life. The humiliation was slow, like being erased one layer at a time. At first, I convinced myself that maybe it was just her personality. Maybe she was shy. Maybe I was too sensitive. But the more I gave, the more distant the me became. It was like feeding a fire that only grew larger, hungrier, until it consumed everything. The years of silence carved deep cracks in my heart. I remember one day, I sat on the bus heading home from work. A woman across from me bounced her grandchild on her lap, both of them laughing. Tears burned my eyes. I turned my face to the window, pretending to admire the view, but inside I whispered, will I ever have that? Will I ever know the sound of my grandchild's laugh? Now with the truth out, that a baby existed, hidden from me, the answer felt clear, no. I wasn't meant to be part of their life. But the betrayal cut deeper because of the years behind it. I thought about the nights when I prayed silently, asking God to protect my son. I thought about how I never dated again after his father left because I didn't want to bring strangers into his world. I thought about how I gave up promotions, vacations, even friendships, because my whole life revolved around him. And now in return, I was nothing more than an outsider. The silence wasn't just absence, it was punishment. It was a message. You don't belong. I remember one phone call that stayed with me. I had asked my son, "Can I come over this weekend? I'd love to see you both." There was a pause, then his voice, hesitant. "Mom, maybe another time. We're adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" I asked. He hesitated again. In the background, I heard her voice, sharp and clear. "Tell her no, she doesn't need to be here." That night I sat on the couch staring at the silent TV. The weight of those words crushed me. She didn't want me there. And my son? He obeyed her. That was when I knew the silence wasn't just bad timing or busy schedules. It was planned. It was deliberate. The years had not been an accident. They had been a slow erasure. I began to see it everywhere. The way she intercepted my texts, the way my son avoided answering when I asked personal questions, the way she controlled the narrative, always painting me as overbearing, unwanted, unnecessary, and I let it happen. Why? Because I thought love meant staying quiet. I thought patience would fix it. I thought if I gave them space, they would come back. But silence doesn't bring people closer. It drives them away. I had spent years of sacrifice only to end up with years of silence. And now, that silence had grown into something even worse. Secrecy. A baby born, and I had been erased from the story altogether. Sitting there in the quiet of my home, I whispered to myself, "How did it come to this?" The walls gave no answer. The phone stayed silent. Only the echo of my own sacrifices filled the room. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the weight of every memory, every humiliation. I told myself, maybe I should accept it. Maybe I should let go. But deep inside, another voice spoke louder. "No, you have given too much to disappear now. You have been silent too long." That night, I cried until sleep finally claimed me. But even in my dreams, I saw the image of that baby stroller rolling past me, carrying a child I wasn't allowed to touch. It was then I realized something painful, yet clear. Silence wasn't protecting me. It was killing me. And if I wanted to survive, if I wanted to reclaim my place, I would have to break it. Because silence had stolen enough years already. Silence had stolen enough years already. That thought kept ringing in my head as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. My pillow was damp with tears, but something inside me was changing. For years, I told myself patience was love, that if I stayed quiet, if I endured, my son would come back. But now I knew the truth. Silence wasn't love. Silence was a cage, and I had locked myself inside it. That night, I got out of bed and stood in front of the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked older than her years, tired eyes, shoulders bent from carrying too much, a face lined with years of sacrifice. I whispered to her, "Who are you now? Are you just the mother they erased?" In my mind, I heard my own mother's voice, soft but firm, like she was standing right there beside me. "Dignity, child. You can lose everything, but never your dignity." I grabbed the sink, steadying myself. That word, dignity, cut through the fog. For years, I had let myself be treated like I was nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I was the woman who had raised a son on her own. I was the woman who survived betrayal before and kept moving. I couldn't stay silent anymore. The very next day, I started paying closer attention. The cracks in their lies were everywhere, now that I was looking. When I called my son's phone, I heard it faintly, an infant crying in the background before the line went quiet. He rushed off, muttering, "Mom, I have to go." Later, a neighbor mentioned casually, "I saw your daughter-in-law at the doctor's office with the baby. He's growing so fast." Each word was like fuel thrown on a fire inside me. The secret wasn't just cruel, it was intentional. They weren't hiding the baby by mistake. They were hiding him from me on purpose. That thought nearly broke me, but it also lit something new. For the first time, I felt anger sharper than pain. Not destructive anger, but the kind that clears the fog and forces you to see. I whispered to myself, no more. No more silence. No more being erased. But anger without action is just poison. I needed to act. One evening, I sat with a notebook and pen. My hands trembled as I wrote down everything I remembered, the excuses, the lies, the overheard whispers. The picture became clear. My daughter-in-law had built a wall brick by brick, and my son had let her. Still, I wasn't ready to confront them yet. I needed strength first. I needed to find my own voice again. So I started small. I began calling more often, not to beg, but to remind them I was still here. When my son picked up, I spoke calmly, even when he tried to cut me short. How are you really? How's the baby? He hesitated. Mom, we're fine. Don't worry about us. But I pressed gently. I heard him crying last time. I know he's there. Why can't I see him? There was silence on the line. Then his wife's voice in the background, sharp and clear. Don't tell her anything. He mumbled quickly. I'll call you later, and hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand. My son was still there, but he was trapped in her shadow. That was when I decided. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for him, too. The next Sunday, I walked to church for the first time in months. The stained glass windows glowed in the sunlight, and the hymns filled the air. I sat quietly in the back pew, letting the music wash over me. I whispered, God, give me strength. Help me remember who I am. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Not because things were better, but because I finally knew what I had to do. I had to speak. That week, I began preparing myself. I practiced words in front of the mirror, rehearsing how I would confront them without breaking down. Why did you hide the baby from me? Do you think I'm so unworthy? I deserve to be treated with respect. Each time I spoke, my voice grew stronger. The woman in the mirror didn't look like a ghost anymore. She looked alive. One night, my neighbor stopped me by the fence again. She said softly, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. I didn't mean to hurt you. I smiled weakly. You didn't hurt me. You opened my eyes. Thank you. Because the truth was, if she hadn't spoken that day, I might still be living in the dark, believing the lies. The awakening wasn't just about the baby. It was about me realizing how much I had allowed myself to be erased. The next morning, I called my son again. This time, I didn't ask permission. Son, I said firmly, I need to see you face to face. No excuses. There was a long pause. Then he sighed. Mom, I don't think. I cut him off. This isn't about what she thinks. This is about us, about family. You owe me that much. For once, he didn't argue. He just said quietly, Fine, come by tomorrow. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding. This was it. After years of silence, after months of being erased, I was finally stepping into the light. That night, I barely slept. I kept rehearsing what I would say, my words twisting and turning in my head. Would he listen? Would she attack me again? Would I finally see the child I had been denied? When morning came, I dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made me feel strong, not flashy, not desperate, just me, a mother who refused to be invisible anymore. As I left the house, I whispered to myself, dignity. No matter what happens, hold on to your dignity. Every step toward his house felt like a drum beat in my chest. My legs were shaking, but my resolve was firm. I wasn't going there to beg. I was going there to be heard. And I knew this time I wouldn't be silenced. Because something had shifted deep inside me. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I wasn't just a grandmother longing for a child. I was a woman who had finally remembered her worth. And once you awaken to that truth, there's no going back. I took a deep breath as I reached his front door. My hand hovered over the bell. This was the moment. The silence was ending. Whatever waited on the other side, I was ready to face it. My hand hovered over the doorbell. My heart hammered so loudly I thought they might hear it from inside. This was the moment I had been building toward, the moment I had feared and prayed for all at once. I pressed the bell. The sound echoed, and within seconds, footsteps shuffled behind the door. It opened just a crack. My daughter-in-law's eyes met mine, sharp and cold. She didn't even pretend to smile. "What are you doing here?" Her tone was flat, defensive, like my presence itself was an offense. "I came to see my son," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. She didn't move. She kept her body wedged in the doorway, as if she could block me with sheer will. Behind her, I heard his voice. "Who is it?" She didn't answer right away, just glared at me. Then she called over her shoulder, "It's your mother!" There was a pause. Then his footsteps came closer, slower, like he wasn't sure he wanted to be there. When he finally appeared, holding the baby in his arms, my breath caught. That was the moment I had been waiting for. The tiny bundle, wrapped in soft fabric, his little hand poking out, curling into the air. My grandchild. Tears blurred my eyes, but before I could take even one step forward, she pulled the door closer against me. "Not today," she said sharply. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Please, I just want to hold him, one time," she scoffed. "You don't get to demand anything here." My son shifted uncomfortably, rocking the baby against his chest. His eyes flicked to me, then away. "Son," I whispered, "please let me in." He hesitated. Then he murmured, "It's not a good time, Mom." That phrase again, always the same, not a good time. Something inside me cracked wide open. Months of silence, years of sacrifice, all boiling over. I straightened my shoulders. My voice came out louder, sharper than even I expected. "When exactly will it ever be a good time? When your child grows up thinking he has no grandmother? When I'm buried, and it's too late to say goodbye?" The hallway went silent. My son froze, staring at me like he had never seen me before. She narrowed her eyes. "Don't raise your voice in front of the baby." The words were a blade. I bit down hard on my tongue, but the fury was rising. "I stayed silent for years," I said. I stepped back. I swallowed my pride. I let you build walls around me. But this is cruelty, hiding my grandchild from me, pretending I don't exist. My son's lips trembled. "Mom, please don't make this harder." I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not the one making it harder. I'm not the one lying. I'm not the one cutting family apart." The baby whimpered softly, and he rocked him faster, avoiding my gaze. That's when she smirked, cold, triumphant. "Only special people get to be in his life," she said. Those words hit me like ice water poured over my soul. Only special people. I gasped. "Are you saying I'm not special enough to see my own blood?" She crossed her arms. "I'm saying not everyone is healthy to have around a baby." Her meaning was clear. She had poisoned my son's mind, painted me as toxic, unworthy. I turned back to him. "Do you believe that? After everything I've done for you? After every meal I skipped so you could eat? After every shift I worked so you could have shoes on your feet? Do you really believe I'm not safe to love your child?" His mouth opened, but no words came out. He just stood there, caught between us, a man torn in half. "Say something," I demanded. Finally, he whispered, I don't want conflict." Conflict. That's what he called this. My erasure, my humiliation, my heartbreak. He called it conflict. My chest burned, but I forced myself to stay steady. Conflict happens when lies are told. Conflict happens when truth is hidden. If you wanted peace, you should have been honest from the beginning. She snapped. "Enough. You're upsetting him." I turned to her, my voice shaking but strong. "I am his mother, and whether you like it or not, that child in his arms is my grandson. You can't erase me, no matter how hard you try." Her face hardened. "Watch me." The baby began to cry louder now, his tiny wails filling the hallway. My son rocked him desperately, muttering, "Shh, it's okay, it's okay." For a split second, our eyes met again, and I saw something there, a flicker of guilt, maybe even love. But then he turned away, Reta, reading deeper into the house. She pushed the door further closed. "You need to leave," she hissed. But I planted my foot against the frame. My voice dropped low, firm. "No, I've been silent too long. You don't get to decide my worth. You don't get to erase me from my own family." Her eyes blazed with fury. She shoved the door harder. "Get out!" I held my ground. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here for the truth. And the truth is, this isn't love. Love doesn't divide. Love doesn't hide. Love doesn't turn a son against his own mother." My son's voice called faintly from inside, torn, shaky. "Please, stop this." But my words had already been spoken. I stepped back at last, not because I was defeated, but because I realized something. They could shut the door on me. They could hide my grandchild. They could call me names, twist stories, make me invisible. But they couldn't take away my dignity, not unless I handed it over. So I let the door close in my face again. This time, I didn't crumble. I walked down those steps with my head high, my tears held back, my spine straight, because I knew something they didn't know yet. This battle wasn't over. The confrontation had left me bruised, yes, but it had also given me clarity. I wasn't powerless, and I wasn't done. I left their doorstep that night with my head high, but inside, I was breaking. The door had slammed in my face, my grandson's cries still echoing in my ears. For days after, I replayed every word, every glance, every silence. My son's guilt was there. I had seen it. But so was the grip she had on him. I told myself, if I don't uncover the truth now, I'll lose him forever. So I started digging. I went back through old messages, phone records, and stories she had told me in passing. Things that once seemed small began to look suspicious. Why had she always spoken for him? Why did she keep me away during the pregnancy? Why had he never once called me back when she said he was too busy? Piece by piece, the picture started forming. But the breakthrough came from someone I never expected. My neighbor, Mrs. Khan. She had seen my daughter-in-law at the clinic months ago. "She wasn't alone," Mrs. Khan whispered, leaning close. "There was a man with her, not your son." My stomach dropped. At first, I thought maybe she was mistaken, but then I remembered the smug way my daughter-in-law had said, "Only special people get to be in his life." What if she hadn't just meant me? What if the baby itself was part of a deeper lie? I tried to push the thought away. I wanted so badly to believe that child was my son's, but doubt was now burning like fire in my chest. I confronted my son over the phone. "Son," I said, my voice trembling, "I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. Is that child yours?" There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing, shaky, uneven. Then he whispered, "Why would you ask that?" "Because," I said, "your wife has been hiding too much. Because nothing makes sense anymore. Because if you are lying to me, you are lying to yourself too." He didn't answer. "Please," I begged, "just tell me the truth." But instead of words, I got the worst sound of all, the click of him hanging up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, remembering every sacrifice I had made for him. I had carried him in my arms when no one else would help. I had worked 2 jobs so he could study. I had prayed for his future, prayed for his happiness. And now I was left in the dark, locked out of his life like a stranger. But my gut told me the truth was there, waiting to be uncovered. So I went further. I reached out quietly to one of his old friends, someone I trusted. At first, he was hesitant, but when I explained everything, his voice softened. "Auntie," he said, "I don't know all the details, but I do know this. Your son has been struggling. He told me once that things weren't that what they seemed, that he felt trapped." "Trapped how?" I pressed. The friend sighed. "He didn't say much, just that he wasn't sure the baby was his. but he begged me not to tell anyone. My knees almost gave out. My suspicions were real. The lies weren't just about me, they were about everything. I felt a rush of anger, but also a strange calm. The truth had been hidden long enough. I decided I wouldn't sit silently anymore. The next day, I went back to their house, but this time, I wasn't there to beg. I was there to demand. She opened the door, annoyance already on her face. "You again? Haven't you caused enough drama?" I looked her straight in the eye. No more games. No more lies. I know the truth. Her smirk faltered just slightly. "What truth?" "That the baby might not be my son's," I said, my voice firm. For the first time, I saw panic flash across her eyes, but she recovered quickly, folding her arms. "That's ridiculous." "Then prove it," I shot back. "A simple test will clear everything." She sneered. "You have no right to ask that." "I have every right," I snapped. "Because if you've built this family on lies, you've stolen not just from my son, but from me, from my bloodline. And I will not stay silent while you destroy him." My son appeared behind her, holding the baby again. He looked pale, shaken. "Son," I said softly, "look at me. Tell me, don't you want to know the truth?" He shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us. "Mom, please stop." "No," I said firmly. "This isn't about me anymore. This is about you, about your child, about your future. You deserve the truth. And if she loves you, she should have nothing to hide." He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "Don't listen to her. She's trying to ruin us." I felt my blood boil. "I'm trying to save him from being chained to lies. Don't twist this into something." "It's not." He finally raised his voice, louder than I had ever heard. "Enough! Both of you!" The baby started crying again, his little wails cutting through the tension. My son cradled him, rocking back and forth. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, "I don't know what to believe anymore." That was the crack. The wall she had built around him was starting to break. I stepped closer, my voice softer now. "Son, listen to your heart. Deep down, you know something isn't right. Don't let fear keep you from the truth. You owe it to yourself, and to that child." He shook his head, torn. "If it's true, if the baby isn't mine," his voice broke, "then my whole life has been a lie." I touched his arm gently. "Then better to know now than to waste years in darkness." She glared at me, furious. "You're poisoning him against me." I met her glare with calm steel. "No, the poison is the lie. The truth is the cure." The silence that followed was heavy. My son's shoulders trembled. Finally, he whispered, "I need to know. We're getting the test." Her face drained of color. "You can't be serious." But he looked at her, his jaw set. "I have to." That moment was the beginning of the end. Days later, the results came. My son called me, his voice hollow. "Mom, you were right." I closed my eyes, my heart aching. "The baby. He's not mine." His voice cracked into a sob. "She lied. All this time she lied." I felt my own tears spill, but they weren't just sadness. They were rage, relief, heartbreak, all tangled together. "I'm so sorry, son," I whispered. He cried into the phone. "I gave up everything for her. I turned against you, my own mother, for her lies." "It wasn't your fault," I said softly. "You were blinded by love. But now you see. And now you can heal." That night, I sat in silence, the weight of years heavy on me. The truth had finally come out. The lie that had chained us, silenced me, and broken our family was now exposed. But the truth didn't fix Eve. Writhing, it cut deeper wounds too, because now my son had to face the shattering of his own world, and I had to decide, would I help him rise again, or would I let bitterness take me over? I chose to rise, because the truth had set us free, painfully, brutally free. And now, we had to find a way to live with it. When the test results came back, everything shattered. My son's voice on the phone had carried the weight of a man broken, a man who had given his whole heart only to find it built on lies. "He's not mine," he had whispered, and those words still echoed in my mind. But after the storm, there was silence, and in that silence, I found something I thought I had lost: my dignity. I told myself, this is not the end of me. This is not the end of us. The next morning, I walked into his house again, not as a beggar asking to be let in, not as the forgotten mother who had been cast aside, but as a woman who had fought for the truth and finally seen it rise to the surface. She was still there, sitting on the couch with her arms folded, eyes sharp like knives. My son sat in the corner, his face buried in his hands. The baby was in a bassinet, innocent and unaware of the chaos around him. I didn't hesitate. I looked straight at her and said, "It's over. The lies are done. You can't hide behind them anymore." She scoffed, but her voice cracked. "You think you've won? You've ruined everything." I shook my head. "No. You ruined yourself. You built a marriage on secrets, and secrets always rot the foundation. Now it has collapsed." My son lifted his head, tears staining his cheeks. "Mom, I don't know what to do." I walked over to him, placing my hand gently on his shoulder. "You hold your head up, son. You walk away with your dignity. You don't need to carry her shame anymore." He looked at me like a child again, like the boy who once leaned on me for strength. And in that moment, I knew I had to be strong enough for both of us. She stood up suddenly, her voice rising. "You think he'll leave me? He can't. He loves me. He needs me." I turned to her, my voice steady. "No, he needed the truth, and you couldn't give it to him. Love without truth is nothing but chains." My son's voice broke the air like thunder. "Stop lying! Stop controlling me!" Her eyes widened. She had never heard him speak like that before. "I gave you everything," he shouted. "I turned my back on my own mother for you, and you laughed at me behind my back. You let me believe a child was mine when it wasn't. Do you know what that does to a man? Do you know what it does to his soul?" She tried to reach for him, but he pulled away. "Don't touch me," he said. "You don't deserve even that." Her face hardened. "If you walk away, you'll regret it. You'll lose everything." I stepped forward. "No, he will lose nothing, because everything he needs is already here. His dignity, his freedom, his family." The silence that followed was heavy. My son stood tall for the first time in years. Then he said the words that cut her down completely. "Get out." She gasped, as if struck. "You can't mean that." But he did. His voice was firm, steady, like iron. "Take your lies and go. This house is no longer your stage." She screamed, she cursed, she begged. But he didn't flinch. He opened the door and pointed to it. "Leave." And she did. The door slammed behind her, and for the first time, the air in that house felt clean. My son collapsed into my arms, sobbing like the little boy I had once cradled. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered over and over. I held him, stroking his hair. "No, son, don't apologize. You were blinded, but now you see. That's what matters." The baby stirred, crying softly in the bassinet. I walked over and looked down at him. My heart ached knowing he wasn't my blood, but he was still innocent, still a child who deserved love. I whispered to him, "None of this is your fault." My son joined me, his face wet with tears. "What will happen to him?" I looked at him and said, "That is not your burden anymore. You did what you could. You loved when love was demanded, but now you must heal." He nodded, broken, but beginning to understand. The days that followed were heavy, but also cleansing. The house was quieter, lighter. My son slowly began to smile again. He started spending more time with me, coming over for dinner, calling me just to talk. The wall between us had crumbled. One evening, he sat across from me at the kitchen table, staring into his tea. Mom, he said softly, I thought I had lost you. I reached across, holding his hand. You could never lose me. Even when you pushed me away, I was still here. I always will be. Tears filled his eyes again. You saved me. If you hadn't fought for the truth, I'd still be trapped. I shook my head. No, son. You saved yourself the moment you chose honesty over lies. I only gave you the push. He smiled faintly, the first real smile I had seen in so long. Word spread quickly. Some people whispered, some judged, some even blamed me for breaking the marriage, but I didn't care anymore. For once, I wasn't carrying shame that didn't belong to me. I had restored my dignity. And with it, I gave my son the courage to restore his own. Weeks later, as we walked in the park together, he stopped suddenly and looked at me. Mom, do you think I'll ever find real love? I smiled, touching his arm. Yes, but this time, it will be built on truth, not lies, and when it comes, you'll know. He nodded, his eyes filled with hope again. That night, I sat by my window, watching the stars. I thought of everything, the sacrifices, the betrayals, the heartbreak. And I realized something. All those years of silence, all those years of humiliation, they had not destroyed me. They had only prepared me for this fight. I had walked through fire, but I had not burned. I whispered to myself, my dignity is mine. No one can take it again. And for the first time in years, I slept in peace. Because I knew the truth had freed us. Because I knew my son had finally come back to me. And because I knew that even in the darkest storms, a mother's strength will always rise. What would you do if you were in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.